Once upon a time, in a land where the green valleys echoed with birdsong and tall mountains touched the sky, there lived an old man named Yusuf. Despite his old age, a serene smile always graced his weathered face. He was known throughout the village for his kindness, but also for his poverty. His clothes were patched and worn, his house was modest, and sometimes he went to bed with an empty stomach. But through it all, Yusuf's spirit remained unbroken. He faced each day with gratitude and hope. People often wondered how he managed to stay so calm and cheerful when life seemed to deal him nothing but hardships. The secret lay in an old, wrinkled pouch that hung from his waist. Inside this pouch, tucked away in a bed of soft cloth, was a small, smooth pebble. To most, it looked like any ordinary stone, round and gray and unremarkable. But to Yusuf, it was a talisman of hope. Every morning when he woke up, he would reach for the pebble, hold it in his palm and whisper, "As long as I have hope, tomorrow will be better." And as the years passed, the pebble became his constant companion, a silent witness to his joys and sorrows, his triumphs and defeats. It was his way of holding on to hope, a tangible reminder of an intangible strength that sustained him through the toughest times. Now, Yusuf wasn't the only one who carried stones. Every person in the village had their own collection of pebbles, smooth and shiny or rough and jagged, big or small. They were simply part of life there. But for Yusuf, this one pebble held a special significance. It was his pebble of hope. One sunny afternoon, a curious young boy named Sammy followed Yusuf out of the village. He wanted to know where the old man went every day to sit in silence for hours on end. As they walked along the dusty path, Sammy noticed Yusuf stop by a large rock and take out his pouch. With wrinkled hands, he carefully removed the pebble and held it up to the sunlight, letting out a soft sigh. Seeing this, Sammy couldn't hold back his curiosity any longer. He asked, "Why do you keep that little stone, old man? It looks like nothing." Yusuf turned around, a gentle smile on his face. "This pebble reminds me that even the smallest thing can carry great meaning. Hope is invisible, but if you hold on to it, it can carry you through the hardest days," he said, looking at the horizon. Sammy didn't understand what he meant, but he nodded politely and returned home. Days turned into weeks, and one day a terrible drought struck the village. The sky turned a harsh blue, devoid of any clouds. The once lush green fields turned into a cracked and thirsty land, and the river that flowed through the village slowly dwindled into a muddy trickle. Fear began to grip the villagers. Their crops withered and died, livestock grew weak, and the abundance of the past seemed like a distant memory. Each day became harder than the last, and whispers of despair filled the air. But amidst all this gloom, Yusuf remained calm. He still walked with a steady pace, greeted everyone with a warm smile, and his eyes still held a glimmer of hope. One evening, Sammy found Yusuf sitting under his favorite tree, holding his pebble. He couldn't help but ask, "Are you not afraid, old man? What if the rain never comes back? What if our fields stay dry and our crops fail? What if we run out of water?" Yusuf gently shook his head. "My boy, if we lose hope, we lose the strength to go on. Hope gives us courage. Without it, we would already be defeated," he said, his voice raspy but firm. "But it's just a stone, old man. How can a stone change anything?" Sammy asked, gesturing towards the parched fields. Yusuf looked at the pebble in his hand and then back at Sammy. "It's not the stone," he said softly. "It's the hope it reminds you of." Then he placed the pebble in Sammy's hand and said, "Hold this, my boy. Let it remind you that no matter how dark things seem, hope is a light that never goes out." Sammy didn't fully understand his words, but he nodded obediently and went home. That night, as he lay in bed, listening to the wind rustling outside, he felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. Though fear gnawed at his heart, he clutched the pebble tightly, finding solace in its smooth surface. It might have been just a stone, but for Sammy, it became a symbol of hope. And so the days turned into weeks, and the drought continued to worsen. Crops failed, rivers ran dry, and the faces of the villagers grew gaunt with worry. But through it all, Sammy held on to his pebble. He carried it with him everywhere, and whenever he felt fear creeping in, he would close his eyes, feel the weight of the stone in his palm, and whisper, "I will keep hope." Slowly, something remarkable happened. As the days passed, he began to feel a new strength welling up inside him. Fear still tugged at his heart, but now there was a new feeling, a tiny ember of hope that refused to be extinguished. This little stone had somehow become a source of courage for him. One day, Sammy noticed a young girl crying by the dried-up riverbed. Her name was Lila, and she was known for her infectious laughter and sunny disposition. But now her face was streaked with tears and her eyes were dull with despair. "Why are you crying, Lila?" he asked gently, sitting beside her. "I miss the rain," she whispered, "and I'm scared we'll never see it again. My flowers have wilted, and soon we won't have anything to eat." Sammy reached out and took her hand. Looking into her tearful eyes, he said, "Don't give up, Lila. The rain will come back. Just hold on to hope. Here," he added, taking the pebble from his pocket. "Keep this. It will remind you that you're stronger than your fears." Lila looked at the pebble, confused. "What's this supposed to do?" she asked. Sammy smiled. "It's not the stone itself, but what it means. It's a reminder that even when things are hard, we have the strength to keep going, because we have hope." From that day on, the children of the village started carrying small stones with them. When they felt afraid, they would hold their stones tight and whisper, "I will keep hope." And as they shared their stones with each other, the pebble's message spread like wildfire. Soon, adults were doing it too. Weeks turned into months, and the drought seemed endless. But the villagers held on. They held on to their stones and to their hope. And then one day, as if woken from a long slumber, the sky rumbled. Dark clouds gathered, and heavy raindrops began to fall. It was the first rain in months. The villagers rushed out of their homes, their faces tilted towards the sky, catching the raindrops on their tongues. They danced and sang, thanking the heavens for the return of the rain. The crops perked up overnight, and the river roared back to life, its waters overflowing their fields, washing away the dust and despair. The next day, the villagers gathered in the town square. They wanted to thank Sammy and Yusuf for giving them the strength to endure the drought. But Yusuf only smiled and waved them off. "You did the hard work, my friends. You held on to hope, and that's what truly matters," he said. Then he looked at Sammy, who stood beside him with a proud smile. "It was your pebble, old man," someone shouted. "It was your pebble that brought the rain." Yusuf turned to the crowd, his eyes twinkling. "Not the pebble, my friends, but your hope. Hope kept you strong until the rain returned." From that day on, the story of Yusuf and his Pebble of Hope became a legend in the village. Children grew up hearing about the drought and how their ancestors had endured it. They learned about the importance of hope, and many of them carried small stones in their pockets too. As for Yusuf, he continued to walk in the fields, his eyes fixed on the horizon, a small pebble in his pouch, a reminder that hope, like a pebble, may seem small, but it can carry us through the biggest challenges life throws our way.